A pro-Biden super PAC warning Democrats if they do not nominate the former vice president, they could face a doomsday scenario. That's according to Politico, which reports a memo from the Unite the Country super PAC to donors obtained by Politico asserts that the party could pay a steep price if Bernie Sanders, Pete Buttigieg, or Amy Klobuchar is chosen as the nominee. Most ominously, it raises the specter of Sanders and billionaire Mike Bloomberg squaring off at a split convention. For more on this, let's bring in Marianne Marsh, former senior advisor to Secretary John Kerry and principal at the Dewey Square Group, Marc Thiessen, Fox News contributor, Washington Post columnist, and an AEI fellow, and Miranda Devine, she's a New York Post columnist, and our favorite to talk to because she's loving America so much and her stay here for this year in Australia. Marianne, could we just do a quick thing on Mayor Bloomberg and this tape about stop and frisk that came out today? The president also has said in the past that he supports stop and frisk, but those words and the tone and the language that Bloomberg uses, he's apologized, but would that be enough?
Well, unlike Donald Trump, who has not apologized. So I think here's the difference.
Donald Trump didn't use that language.
Yeah. If voters have to choose between Bloomberg and Trump, they will pick Bloomberg every time because they feel that he has made amends for his actions and 4 more years of Trump is unsustainable for them. One last point. Look at Donald Trump's ads and his overtures to African Americans and voters of color. Mm-hmm. It's not about getting their votes. It's about convincing a small slice of suburban white voters that he's more palatable to them than he is otherwise on these issues. And that's how you should view all of this.
But, I mean, he has to try to expand beyond his base. And his numbers with suburban men have improved, but not with suburban women. And maybe that is something he needs to do.
Well, first of all, there's nothing wrong with appealing to suburban voters. But, I mean, look, the fact is that Donald Trump's record when it comes to African-American community is beyond anything. I mean, if you just look at what he said in the State of the Union address, lowest unemployment rate for African-Americans, lowest youth unemployment rate for African-Americans ever in the history of it. He highlighted a Tuskegee Airmen. He highlighted his criminal justice reform. He had an ad in the Super Bowl. I mean, he's making a real push for African-American voters. And the reality is he doesn't have to win a lot of them. He doesn't have to expand he won 8% last time. If he doubles that, the Democrats are in big trouble.
Who do you think benefits from a Bloomberg tape like this that comes out?
Well, I think Bloomberg does, actually. I don't think he should have apologised for policies which drove crime in New York down to the lowest rates. And the people who were most suffering from high gun shootings, high murders, were the black community. Like, since those supposedly because of anti-racism measures, those policies have been dismantled, we've had a 30% increase in shootings in New York. And, you know, you had a 16-year-old black kid playing basketball the end of last year near his home in Jamaica, Queens, shot by a stray bullet. And I think that, you know, every parent, whatever race you are, they want your child to be safe. And that's what Bloomberg did. And to go back on the greatest achievement of his 12 years as mayor is just nuts.
It's also not a coincidence that this came out today, because nobody is going to be saying today the real winner is Mike Bloomberg.
So who do you think?
The lack of coincidence is this attack came out after yesterday the FBI designated white nationalism as the biggest threat to America as ISIS.
The coincidence is that there's a poll out that shows that Joe Biden has lost 20% points with black voters, and Mike Bloomberg has gained 20%.
All three of the emerging Democratic frontrunners have a problem with black voters. Yeah. I mean, Sanders does, Pete Buttigieg does, and now Mike Bloomberg does.
Bill McGurn, one of our friends as well at the Wall Street Journal, he said that Mayor Pete is the one to beat, and he said that while Bernie remains the favorite to win in New Hampshire, Pete's post-Iowa mojo makes him the man to beat. Is that true after here in New Hampshire? You've got a mixed result in Iowa. You probably have Bernie winning tonight. You go to South Carolina. What happens, Marianne?
I finally admitted to myself this morning that we're going to have a war of attrition. I won't be surprised if Buttigieg wins tonight. I think he's going to do incredibly well. But he hasn't been tested yet either. And that's what we're about to go through this process where everyone's truly going to get vetted. The thing that jumped out at me, especially at the last 2 debates in Iowa and New Hampshire Friday night where I was at the debate, is Pete Buttigieg doesn't like to be challenged on his record or the facts. And it reveals a little side of him personally where he sort of bristles at it. And I think that's something he's going to have to overcome. That's the one thing about New Hampshire. You learn something about everyone who comes through here, who ends up in the White House, that you see when they're president.
You know who's not defensive about her her policies and her position is Amy Klobuchar.
Yeah, she's actually the surprise and I think the underestimated candidate of this whole. We'll see what she does tonight. I think she's likeable. She has a great record. She's very open, down to earth. with. And she actually should benefit from those moderate votes that will have to leave Biden's collapsed campaign. At the moment, Pete Buttigieg is got those votes in Iowa, but he's not really a moderate. He's a very talented politician. He's doing a very good job of sort of hiding his more radical tendencies, but I think Amy Klobuchar might be the one to look at.
And I wanted to ask you, Mark, just that we don't have that much time, but with Bernie Sanders, you know, I still feel like the Democratic establishment is suggesting that he really doesn't have as much support as it seems that he actually does. He took over the national frontrunner in one of the polls yesterday.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, I think Bernie Sanders has the heart and soul of the Democratic Party. And you're right, Pete Buttigieg isn't that moderate, but everybody's moderate compared to Bernie Sanders. I mean, Bernie Sanders has proposed $97 trillion in new spending, 70% of GDP in government spending, 50% of every American working in this country would work for the government under Bernie Sanders' administration. So anything is moderate compared to that. So,
but he's the only one getting any enthusiasm at the moment in the caucuses and the primaries.
One last quick thing. If you want to understand the fight between Sanders and Buttigieg, New Hampshire has more voters under the age of 30 than over 65, and that's why they're really good.
It's a great state. We love it here. Marianne, Mark, Miranda, thank you so much.
Thank you.